Right. And, culture is learned, so you can't expect someone to walk into your church culture and bam, they get it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to expect them to, bit by bit, step by step, go, okay, so, we have a potluck once a month, and me bringing super spicy food is not a part of this church culture. I don't know, that's a bad example, but...
It's a very pastory example. But you're good. I get what you're saying.
Welcome to the 42 Podcast, where we discuss life together, looking for answers to life, the universe, and, well, everything else. Here are your hosts, Rob and Lindsay. Good morning, Lindsay.
Hey!
Ha! I got to say it first this time. You've been way too eager the past couple weeks.
I'm quick.
So, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. Guess what I'm looking at right now?
I have no idea.
My lightsaber.
Your lightsaber? What?
Yes, the one you made me.
Yes, you have the lightsaber, the dark saber. It's not a lightsaber.
Dark saber.
It's the dark saber.
I couldn't remember if it was black saber or dark saber.
Dark saber.
Okay, dark saber.
And that one I tried to make as accurate to the show and everything. So, I mean, that one is like the right schematic for the painting and some little twists with damage and use and, story built into it. But, yeah.
It's awesome. And we are going to post a picture of it.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a side-by-side because while that one was in the mail to you, I was like, that was a really beautiful printing. I'm going to make one for myself.
Mm. Yep.
And
you sent me a little gnome, too.
Yeah, I meant to explain that to you a little bit, and I forgot. I entirely blanked. I think in the last episode I talked about how the family gnome and how that was. Did I talk about that?
Yeah, you did. Yep.
Okay. Well, it was the first thing I figured out how to 3D scan so I could replicate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I do, because I'm kind of finding a niche for my printing of like costume and cosplay stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I do things like if people have a request and I can print it for them, I think I'm just going to call it the Iron Gnome printing.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
And that's why you got that little gnome in there. That the stand I made, I actually have a little gnome embedded on that. So I think if I do things because we've got the PA Ren Fairs not too far from us and stuff like that. So if I ever get into doing like cosplay printing, hardcore and serious, it'll be Iron Gnome printing.
That's cool. You can make some money.
In theory, little by little, I got to get more designs to print.
You could make like little Monopoly pieces or little cool little game board pieces, and that's cute.
Make a chess set.
Yeah, chess.
Yeah.
Chest.
No, what did I say? I said chess.
It sounded like you said chest set.
Oh, jeez.
I gotta start making fun of you during the podcast instead of later when I'm editing. That way everyone's not like, what? Why didn't... What?
And that's entirely fair. There are still little weird hang-ups that I have and words I can't say and
Massachusetts?
Yeah. I can't do a Bostonian accent, but
but you also can't pronounce Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
No, that's not how you say it. You're not saying it with the T's at the end. Try again.
I'm saying the T, Massachusetts.
No, you're not.
There's a T and S.
It's not. No, you're doing Massachusetts.
How do you say it?
Massachusetts. Sits.
Oh, whatever. My wife is from Lancaster County.
Mm-hmm.
And she still gets on me that I can't say Lancaster County correct. I think I'm saying it. I don't know. I can't say certain things in the correct vernacular.
Well, if you make fun of me and I make fun of you during the podcast, then if we can't edit it out and it just stays in there, people will know we do know that we do know how to speak.
It's the accent thing. I mean, you've got more of a Massachusetts accent, and I've still got some of my oh my gosh, I can't say it this morning. Pittsburghese hang-ups. There it is. Living in Eastern PA, everyone yells at me that no, it's not pop, it's called soda or wooder.
Yeah. So you don't say wooder?
I don't say wooder. I say water.
Yeah.
I say water.
Yeah.
There's no udder in there.
My pastor says wooder. Wooder. He's from Rhode Island. Wooder.
Yeah.
And he says milk funny too, like milk. Also milk.
Oh, jeez.
And mouth. He's like, oh, it's like a weird O thing going on.
Yeah. Where I have hang-ups, I blame it on my Pittsburghese or former Pittsburghese because I don't have all the vernacular like I used to. Although I did catch myself. I picked someone up this week off of the Allegheny Trail, and he got in the car. I was driving him back home, and I said, "Jeet Jet. You ever hear Jeet Jet?"
Jeet Jet. Yeah.
You know what it is?
Did you eat yet?
Yeah, I caught
Jeet
myself.
Jet.
I was like, "Oh wow, I haven't said that for like years." Jeet Jet.
Yeah. I love listening to that stuff because we say things like that all the time. So both my daughters have been in speech therapy, so I'm very conscientious of how we say words because we're trying to teach English to our children. So I catch like my mother-in-law has a super heavy Maine accent. And we just say funny things. We just smush words together so it sounds like one word, even though it's a phrase. Like one thing they say is like going across. I went across the street. Like there's a T in there that doesn't belong there. It's just funny little things like that I notice. So I don't always make fun of them, but I do sometimes because it's fun.
It is funny raising kids and trying to get them to think about and say and interact with words correctly. Mm-hmm. Really is.
And we talk so fast. We talk really fast, and we expect our little people to just sort of get it. And they do a good job. I mean, if you think about getting thrown into a foreign language, just thrown into it, they do amazing. And
I will say this is something that it surprised me, where I feel like I have a nice kind of even tempo and pacing in my words, and I don't feel like I'm talking ultra fast. Mm-hmm. I know people who do, and it drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. But when I went to the South and lived there for a year,
yeah,
holy smokes, they thought I was talking like 20 miles a minute, and I'm just way too fast, slow down. I didn't think I talked fast.
Yeah, I've heard that. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to be, so I guess they just talk real fast because they don't want it to be over, maybe. Don't go!
I don't know, but the thing I always consider is I'm like the southernmost of what you consider a Yank. I'm in southern Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I can't even understand my sister sometimes. She's just way too fast.
Yeah.
And she looks at us like idiots for not understanding her. Slow down.
Language is interesting, but that's not what we're talking about this morning. We have like 10 minutes where we catch up on things and just kind of, how's life? Yeah. And then when we get into the conversation.
Yeah, maybe we should just put that in the show notes. Like, the first 10 minutes is, whatever. Warming up. Yeah. Warm up your ears.
It's just, how's life? What's life look like?
Yeah.
How's the family stuff? Things like that. Just what a normal conversation would be.
Yeah.
Which is what we're aiming for with this podcast. It's just two friends having normal conversations. except for this one, because this one is
This is a little
not
weird.
talked about in polite company.
Yes.
No, it's not swear word episode 2.0. Not that.
Yeah.
But it
Not
comes
that
with
bad.
its own... Yeah, it comes with its own warning, though.
Yes, it does.
So, we're going to be talking about sex, sexuality, purity culture, the cultures that we were raised in, the reconciliations of that, and all of that fun stuff that kind of comes with that conversation. Now, Lindsay and I have set boundaries in it. We're not talking about deep, intimate, personal subjects and what that looks like, but just kind of that culture we grew up in, some of the good, the bad of it, and navigating what it is to be in our me mid-30s, you early 30s, and you know, having kids now. And for clarity, I think we can establish one thing up front, okay?
Mhm.
And that is our general expertise on the topic. You're making a face
Okay.
at me, okay? So, Lindsay, you have 4 kids.
Yeah, so I'm an expert.
You've at least had sex 4 times.
Yes.
I have 2 kids. I've at least had sex 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, there we go. There's our general expertise.
Yes.
Yeah, so, sex and purity culture.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your first exposure to, let's just jump into purity culture.
Hmm.
Do you remember how old you were?
I think I was 12 or 13. I think it was like my 13th birthday, and I got a True Love Waits ring.
Did you go to one of the big conferences, or did your parents just give it to you?
I didn't go to a True Love Waits conference, but I went to other things that talked about it a lot, and like in youth group we talked about it some.
Okay.
Yes and no.
Yeah, I guess we need to talk about that too.
What about you?
It was about that same age, and right around February, and there was a True Love Waits conference in the area that my youth group went to, and I went to it, and, you know, they did the whole kind of concert-esque Saturday Night Live feel with skits and drama and
Yeah,
music and a speaker or two, and, you know, sex is great, but don't have it now. You're all a bunch
Yeah.
of hormonal, raging teenagers, but don't have sex now, and
Yep.
that was the moral of the evening. Don't have sex now.
Yeah.
But presented in 10 different ways, ending at the same statement. Don't have sex now. And then immediately followed by the warning. And if you do, you're broken.
Really?
That's the summary warning. That's the summary warning. But it was, if you do... So, there's a reason why I wanted you to wait to open that box that I sent you this week. I wanted to use it as an illustrative.
I know where you're going with this.
You opened up a box I sent you this week, and inside was...
The Darksaber.
Right. And the whole premise, and this is probably one of the worst premises I ever heard presented at True Love Waits, was if you become sexually active now as a teenager, it's like opening your gifts on Christmas morning early, and you've ruined Christmas for everyone.
That's awful.
Yeah, but why is everyone involved in my sexuality?
Yeah, why do you need to be... Why do you need to know? Yeah. I've heard this one. There's someone comes on stage, and they're holding a styrofoam cup. And they say, this styrofoam cup is pretty cool. It holds water. You know, you take a drink out of it, and then you throw it in the trash can. And then, they take a teacup. And they say, this is a beautiful teacup. It's priceless. It costs a lot of money. I am going to drink something really nice out of it. And I'm not going to throw it in the trash can or break it on the edge of the curb. I'm going to wash it and put it away for special use, special occasions. The illusion being when you don't want to just have sex in such a way that you're treating your body like a styrofoam cup and just letting anybody use you and trash you or give yourself to just anybody. You want to be a precious teacup and value yourself so that you don't just give yourself to any willy-nilly but be choosy. And, well, they would say, you save yourself for the one.
So, speaking as someone in youth ministry and who has dealt with this, the thing that I stick on and deal with and try and teach with my students is that, you know what, sexuality is a beautiful gift, and you do want to preserve it for marriage. But life happens. You're not broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I try to camp on it, because that culture of the 90s and 2000s in True Love Waits and Silver Ring thing, they've had to kind of walk themselves back from those stances, because it really did become kind of finding who had the scarlet letter.
Yeah.
And there was no redemptive side to it. You are broken.
Yes,
and
it did. I remember being super impacted, or it would really stick out to me when I would hear that someone had a baby outside of marriage, or it would come up in youth group meetings sometimes, or they would confide in you, and I never gossiped and I never looked down on them, but it just impressed them on my heart and brain, this is a broken person. And I felt sad for them, and also very attracted to them, not in a sexual way, but I really wanted to be with them for some reason, because they were broken, or they seemed broken. And I don't know if this is where we should go now, but something that I think that those kind of meetings and talk, something it does is it raises sex to this high pinnacle of what marriage is and what a relationship should be. The best thing about this relationship is the sex, and how you look to them and how they look to you, and the fact that you saved yourselves for each other, or even past that point when you're married, it's all about the sex. And I just have to say that it is absolutely not. And I think that's something that should be talked about a lot more, is sex is a fifth or a sixth of the stuff that is fun about marriage. It's just one thing, and it's cool, but it's not the thing that's gonna last. It's not the thing that you're gonna...
Of course it's not the thing that's gonna last. It's why Pfizer makes a special blue pill.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Right.
But no, you're exactly right, because in a marriage, it's an important binding agent. That sounds unexciting when you say it. It sounds unexciting.
But it's okay.
You're oh, yay.
It's okay.
It's super glow. But it is. It's an
Yeah.
important binding agent between two people, because there's a vulnerability in that intimacy that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to evaluate our sexuality and who we're having sex with, because this week or 2 weeks ago episode, you gave an example of the Hollywood tries to portray sex like a handshake.
Yeah.
Oh, we've just met, let's have sex. And that's negating the entire vulnerability that comes with. And I'm not saying this to try and... I'm saying this because there's a reality to that vulnerability.
Yes.
If we're callous in that vulnerability, we kind of become callous in personality as well. It's not exactly the best way to phrase these things. Yeah,
so I believe there is something that can be allowed to happen when you have sex with your partner that you are committed to, your spouse. There's something about it that resets you, where, there's jobs, there's errands, there's chores, there's the minutia of daily life, and it's easy to be two ships passing in the night, so to speak. And it could be days, a week, and it's we haven't really had time. And sometimes it's that it's you just feel the sigh of relief, we're finally connecting again, and it is physical, but it's not. And that's why I'm afraid that if you were to have many partners, you would be cheating yourself of something that's not just meant to be a performance-based, well, how'd I do? Did I do better than last time? you're just comparing yourself to yourself because you're in a new relationship, with a new partner, so it's just so performance and selfish in a way. Whereas go ahead.
And this is where I'm going to jump in and say, yes, those things are an aspect of it, definitely, where it's that casualness that you're fighting against. But there's also an element of, have you ever heard of kintsugi?
No.
Okay. I read up about this a while ago. So unfortunately, a piece of dinnerware that we got from my grandmother broke.
Oh, yes, I have heard of kintsugi, yes.
And kintsugi is the art, and I put a picture up on screen for you. It's the art of repair in pottery. And what they do in Japan is they normally repair it with like an epoxy that they lace with gold dust. So in the piece that I'm showing you, you can see the gold streaks that are where it's been repaired. Mm-hmm. And I find that beautiful. I find that incredibly and unfortunately telling of redemptive in another culture that we miss, is that redemptive side.
Yeah.
Because my view of humanity and of people is we forget that we're all broken. We forget that we all have these cracks. Yeah. And in some of these things, it's easier to look and say, well, look, for someone you knew in high school, it's easy to say, well, you were the one who got pregnant, or you were the one who, and we miss our own cracks. So with sexuality and what we have done as Christian culture, it does frustrate me because it's, well, wait a minute.
Right.
We can look at those things. We can look at the divorcee or the, and say, how dare you, or you're cheapening this, but miss the person that is there, that is broken through our own brokenness.
Yeah.
And be in a state of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the greatest kind of hang up I have then with this is even today in some of our language, we still do this. Oh no, you've been, who cares where we've been? Where are we going?
Yeah. I agree. And you know what? I messed up. I've messed up sexually, and
are you sure you want to go down that road?
No, I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to go into it, but I don't think it made me less of a person. It didn't, I was already broken, Yeah. So that's kind of silly to say that if you've had sex before you were married that you're broken now. Like, we're already broken. And I think there is a special hurt that comes with sexual sin. And sort of, I think it's uniquely hurtful when you do to you, and it's not. And I don't think it's cheating anybody else. It's cheating you. It's cheating just you, and that's between you and God. But I do think that what kintsugi?
Kintsugi.
And I think that's your point. Is in a way that jar is more beautiful having been broken and repaired than if it hadn't been broken. Now it's remarkable. Now it has a story to tell. You have a story to tell that's uniquely you, and it's because you've been beat up. It's because you've gone through stuff. It's because you have sinned, and that's what makes your story unique to you, and you can now, it gives you an access pass to talk to people who have also been where you are. Like, I'm gay, and I have an ability and a right to talk in a way that maybe you don't, or with an authority that maybe you don't, because I know what it feels like. So that's kind of all I mean. That's what I meant about that.
No,
that's the conclusion of my point.
Well, but that is the piece that has been missing in those conversations. That is the cultural piece that we never put in there. And if we did, it was just a quick footnote of, well, God can redeem you, and that was it, moving along. I've seen people who have taught that if you had sex before marriage, and this one broke my heart, because it was almost hardline evangelical non-redemptive. is what I'll call it. And it was, if you have sex before you're married, you have entered into a covenant with that person and can never enter into a covenant with whoever your spouse may be.
Wow, that's super crazy.
That was just, wow, no, that's hard.
So
That's
that's
a bridge too far.
yeah.
Because that's saying that the redemption of the cross only goes to this point. And after you cross this point, nothing. You get nothing.
Yeah.
And that's man's judgment. That's not God's.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God's judgment was that David was a man after his own heart, even though he killed Uriah and stole his wife.
Yeah.
And
David
slept with
was
her
a
alive.
mess. Yeah.
He was.
Yep.
And then look at his son, Solomon. 300 wives, 700 concubines. Holy smokes, that guy can't see his wives or concubines within a 3-year period.
Yeah. Yep. Huh.
Certain parts of that culture are in decline. That judgmental culture. Like True Love Waits has reeled itself back and realized they need to have more redemptive sides. One of the more regional purity conferences for where I grew up was called Silver Ring Thing. And I knew one of the speakers for Silver Ring Thing many years ago. And she had a testimony of, I screwed up, but there's redemption. Mm-hmm. It's the first time I heard a redemption, and she was like the main speaker, and it was on the redemptive side. And this was in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's that side that we need more, not just in the Purity Conference, but even in our conversation and ability to speak to sexuality.
Yes.
Because I think when we go hardcore with the don't, we miss, you know, when we started talking about this a bit at the beginning, when we say don't, we build this guilt complex. So even if you have waited for sex till you're married, that wedding night should be a great celebration, but a thing that has been heard from a lot of Christian couples is this
just
remorse.
Very.
Yeah. Well, very awkward, this guilt and remorse, and that's not how you should feel.
Yeah.
When you're married.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
On the one hand, sex absolutely 100% has consequences. 100%. And not even discussing abortion, I think we should have a heavy sense of responsibility that it is a big thing because there are consequences to sex. And if you have sex, you could have a baby. And if you get someone pregnant, that is your responsibility. And that's kind of where I will be coming from with my sons, is don't do it. Don't do it until you're married, and even if just for the reason that you should be committed to that family. You're a family now. And so you need to be committed to that family. That is yours. I want there to be that healthy fear of the consequences. Just like drunk driving or driving without a seatbelt on. Like, when you do this, there are consequences, and the consequences could change your life forever. So I want there to be that heavy weight, but at the same time, not elevate sex to this position of, like, the forbidden fruit and, oh, what's this sex?
It's a hard balance. Because the consequence side of things, I mean, speaking very raw and bluntly, you know, a guy can go and have sex and then never deal with any of the consequence of that sex. And culturally, we have seen those statistics. We've seen how that plays out. And, you know, that's even part of the conversation on abortion and why it's there. And Christians in general and as a whole, we've camped out in the position of the moral abortion is bad, but we're not addressing, you know, we're missing 10 steps in the middle of addressing not just why it's bad, but, you know, the consequence of sex, and not teaching it in a way that is productive.
Yes. And that's why making sex seem like just a handshake and passing out condoms in 6th grade to kids gets this idea in their heads that whatever, it's no biggie. But it is a big deal because you can get someone pregnant. And that is a huge deal. That is a child. So assuming that that child is born, this, 9th grader is now a father. Do we really want that? Do you really want that? And so that should be a sobering thing. It should impact how we teach appropriate sexual behavior with young people. The sobriety of it.
Well, and that's, again, you're coming against the portrayals in Hollywood. When I was in 6th grade, porn on the internet was only just beginning to be a thing. It was still, the magazines snuck into locker rooms and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, now the ease of access, good God, the number of trackers and blockers and things I have to monitor my kids' access to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Just to try and circumvent exposure to adult material is ridiculous. And it's an uphill battle. Because, at 11 years old, my son doesn't need to see that stuff. As a 9-year-old, my daughter doesn't need to see that stuff. They need to have the understanding, and this is also, kids, I love you. If you are listening to this later in life, forgive me. Even the conversations we have as parents, in how we teach and talk about and interact with sex, is going to set a precedent for the rest of their life. If we're very awkward and we're very stuttery and scared to tell them what sexuality is, and the dreaded question, how is a baby made? Whoopsies.
Mm-hmm.
That can have a lasting impact.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I have any answer to this, because I'm pretty sure I stuttered about 500 times in trying to explain it to my son. Because how do you not look at your offspring, who is a product of, and then try to explain this as they're going, is that what you did to my mother?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, kid. I know I gave you some psychological issues unintentionally, but, that's... It's weird. It is a weird thing to navigate.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I guess I want to rewind a bit and, talk about Christianity, biblical, and sex.
Okay.
We always talk about in these things how, God is pro-sex, and then move right along to how you shouldn't have it until you're married. And the thing that always drove me nuts is, well, why do we say God is pro-sex and then not give any examples of how God is not, or how God is pro-sex?
Yeah.
God is pro-sex, but don't have it until you're married. Okay, why do we say that? And this is where I love to do this, all right?
Okay.
Creation. What did he do?
He created a man and a woman. And
Two very naked people.
Yes.
In paradise.
Yes.
Yep. Two very naked people in paradise.
What? Okay, so this is what I want to know. It's how long, did they get, a chart? Or did they get, some kind of little run-through? Or, a explanation? Because it's not what would come... okay, hold on. Let me be careful how I phrase that. It's not what would occur to me to do, I don't think. It doesn't really make sense the way things are normally, if you know what I mean. If you're just, hanging around, it's not really what I would think you should do. Well, I don't get it. I really don't understand it. I do, but...
I think, and we overlook this, but I think the blessing in Genesis 1:28, pre-fall, the scripture has a way of kind of being allegorical. Is that how you say that? Am I screwing that up? Allegorical? Okay. Towards sex. We're going to kind of reference it, and it's there, but we don't need to be like in detail about it. So I think the blessing in Genesis 1:28 of God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, increase in number, and fill the earth and subdue it." I think that was the sex talk.
Yeah.
Now, I think Moses, as the presumed author of Genesis, is just summarizing that as, hey, this is the blessing. Oh. Uh-oh, what did I do?
So, who knows how long also they were in the garden before the plot thickened?
Jazz hands! You got it right, dead on.
So, they would have figured it out eventually, and they would have seen other animals. I mean, they would have seen animals doing it.
I'm not sure.
So,
oh my gosh, that's like the 90s. You and
what?
me, baby, we ain't nothing but mammals.
Oh, yeah.
Never listened to that one?
Yeah.
Was that the soundtrack for Garden of Eden?
So that's gonna be the,
Yeah. That's great. That's just awesome.
Okay.
Oh, alright. I don't think they were like, oh, look, the horses are over there. That's what we did. No, I think the Genesis 1:28 is God giving the sex talk and Moses going, and how do I say that without saying that? Oh, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. We all know what that means.
Yeah.
That's my assumption.
Hanky panky.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And Scripture does that, where they do these little subtle kind of innuendo and allegory and then move right along.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what just happened? What? Is that what I think that is? Oh. Yeah. 9 months later, it's talking about a kid, and you're like, oh, yeah, that was what it was.
Hey, come look.
Welcome to the first 42 podcast commercial, brought to you by you, the listeners. Lindsay and I have been working on this podcast for a while now, and we're enjoying it. We're enjoying the feedback, the interactions we're having with you, our listeners, and we want to continue to grow that. We want to continue to work with you guys and to experience life together with you. So this commercial is primarily aimed at you guys of, hey, be a part of our conversation. Join us in social media. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at the 42 Podcast. Join us through the email of badtheologyproductions@gmail.com. And all of that can be found in the show notes now. Check out the YouTube channel. Leave some comments up there. Leave a rating and review for us on the podcast app that you use and listen to us with. That helps us not only understand what you're experiencing and engaging with this podcast, that helps us get more ears on this podcast, to get more voices in. And hey, if you want to join us, seriously, if you want to come on our podcast and talk with Lindsay and I, reach out, say hello. We'll say hi back. We'll have you on. And it doesn't take a huge setup to join us on the podcast. So, reach out through social media, get in touch with us, interact, because you are a significant part of everything we're doing. We want to have this as a community that is just exploring life in every way that we can. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of what we're planning, what we're building, what we're doing. You are important to us. Never underestimate that. You sitting there, I see you. You are important to us. So thank you for putting the time to listen and to join. All right, back to the conversation.
Go away. I was gonna say you should be a bonus episode, but now you're not. You lost your bonus episode right. Can you shut the door, honey? The thing with Colby is he just knows how to take it to that level. It's kind of what he's famous for at work, is being the guy that takes the joke to that level. And so yeah, that's Colby.
There's always one. Well, I'll add that one to the list. Sorry, I'm actually really enjoying being able to print and make these. Been fun. Alright. He's on the list.
Right. Oh my gosh, what if you make... Oh, I guess you can't really do that. It'd be cool if you could design your own things for the printer and do, like, a gnome holding the 42. Holding the numbers 42 in, like, big block numbers. Or, like, standing on the 42 or... something like that. That'd be cute. Can you do that? You said you've been working on CAD, right? Like, you know how to do some stuff? Isn't that what
I have been tinkering. So these are just a few of the things I've tinkered with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh,
I still have those chips.
I forgot to tell you about this. I was actually working on creating a 42 sign from our
Cool.
logo. I'm not happy with it yet.
Yeah.
I need to pick that back up. But yes, there are a few things I could do. Yeah, those are all. There it is. I started tinkering with, and I haven't finished it, but now that I'm printing them again, this was my lightsaber design that I would make for me if I was a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
If it ever loads. So yes, I have considered what it would look like for me to make a lightsaber that is mine.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Have you played the game, Fallen Jedi? Fallen
Yes.
Order?
Yes,
I think that was one of my...
haven't
I beat it. It's one of the few games I've beaten. I've probably beaten like 3 or 4 games in my life. But I think my favorite part of that game was him on his mission to rebuild his lightsaber. To fix his lightsaber. Whatever. I loved that. That was a really cool part.
Yeah, I sometimes struggle with platformers. That's why I haven't beaten it.
What do you mean?
Anyway, well, the jumping from platform to platform, you have to land just right, and that's where I struggle. But anyway, distractions aside. So, years later, post-purity culture, post-marriage, what are the takeaways? Is there anything of value that you have taken away from that time and still incorporate with your life?
What are you asking me?
So of all the lessons of purity culture, of things
okay.
like True Love Waits and I Kiss Dating Goodbye, and every plethora of book, resource, thought, is there anything that you have still walked away with today that was a lesson from that time period that is of any remote value, or
Yeah.
it hasn't?
Well, I think sex does mean something. And I do think there is something spiritual going on between two people. Ideally, when you have sex. That's why, it is special. That's why you shouldn't cheat on your spouse. Or, that's why that's what set boundaries, because it's special. If it wasn't special, there would be no boundaries. But there are boundaries. And, so, yeah, let's see, what else have I taken from that?
I mean, that sounds about the only summary there is. I mean, even from my perspective, even with still dealing with youth today, I started saying at the beginning, is I try to get them to understand the value of it and the consequence of it, but also that, there is redemption. You don't just go and have sex and become a broken person.
Yes. May I? I would never want to give the impression to my daughter, and this is kind of how I felt, is that there is more to me than my sexuality. There's more to me. I have a sexuality, and my daughters and my sons will too, but there's so much more to you, and to cheapen your identity and wrap up a relationship with another person so that it's so focused on that one aspect, and then expect it to be a healthy relationship.
Alright, so
Did I step in it?
you just kind of, no, you didn't step in it, but you brought it to a piece of the conversation that we really should talk about. And it's not one that I have to admit, I'm not very sensitive to. I will blunder through this section of the conversation is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Okay.
Because I don't fully understand it. Because I'm a guy. But I'll give the example is at the beginning of summer this year, when all of the swimsuits started coming out, we, of course, as a family, needed new swimsuits for the kids, because they grow over the winter, apparently.
Mm.
And we went shopping. We found, swim trunks for my son. That was pretty quick and easy. Guy swimsuits are...
You're still alive.
So swimsuits.
We have to come up with a husband alert now.
Yes.
But boy swimsuits are always easy. You just get a pair of swim trunks and that's that. They have a cool pattern. Da-da-da-da-da. Girl swimsuits are a lot more complicated. And Melinda had a conversation with me after, but while we were out getting swimsuits, I trust my wife's judgment. I do.
Yeah.
But I screwed up while we were out getting swimsuits because, Adeline is looking at all of these cute swimsuits for girls her age, and there's this cute two-piece that Melinda had approved, and Addie came up and showed it to me, and I grunted or I had a dad reaction because she's my little girl. I want to protect her, and
you don't want guys oogling her. You don't want pervs and
she's a little
pedophiles
girl, right?
Looking at her like that.
Right. And Melinda and I talked about it later, and she's right, where it was, it's not a bad thing for her to wear a bikini, a conservative two-piece. In my dad mind, I was very much, that's my daughter.
Yeah.
I will murder you.
Yeah.
But there's even this push right now in, youth ministry. I've seen this conversation through the course of the summer as youth ministries are trying to understand, guys are trying to understand the dress codes and policies that we've had in youth ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And are they negative or are they positive? Youth ministry will say that girls can't wear two pieces, or if they do, they have to cover up with a t-shirt, while you have guys running around with
shirtless.
Just... Right. And
yes.
And I get there's the conversation of, okay, well, guys don't have boobs. But, is that fair? Is that right? Is that inflicting the morality of... hang on, let me finish this.
Okay.
Is that inflicting the morality of... what's the word I'm looking for? Modesty. The morality of modesty on young ladies unequally.
So that is a very masculine perspective rule. That's a very masculine criticism of that rule, because the assumption is men are attractive to boobs, but women are not attracted to men's bodies, to men's chests, arms, back, abs. Women very much are. And so I disagree with that justification, and I think that I like it when my son wears shirts, too, because same thing. I don't know, if you're going to apply that rule, I think applying it equally is the right thing to do. Because I can remember looking at a guy that I had a crush on in youth group, and he was shirtless, and he was extremely good looking, he was extremely cut, and he was literally steaming. I mean, really. He was literally steaming. So I was a little flustered, and it would have been probably better for me at that age for him to have a t-shirt on.
And I'll say this. With where I'm at right now in youth ministry, I have not put dress codes on things for a while. We've had pool days, and I don't put a dress code on it. And I'm in a position where, and I've said this to my students, where it's, okay, if I need to talk to you about what you're wearing at the pool, you're going to be exposing yourself in a way that no one is comfortable with. And I'm not talking, oh no, you've worn a bikini. You're going to be wearing, the G-string bikini, and in a family setting, that's not appropriate.
Right. Well, you know how when your church has members, And certain rules, when you're a member, you all agree to follow certain rules. Like, everybody agrees that if you're a member, you pay tithe, you do tithe, and you, I don't know, come to board meetings, whatever the rules are. You can't expect a stranger who comes in to pay tithe. You don't expect them to because they're not a member. So possibly, and maybe if you have a youth group, the people that have been coming for a while, 6 months, a year, they can be expected to follow certain rules and guidelines. But if they bring a friend who isn't properly dressed or doesn't look modest, we don't expect that person to follow those guidelines to the letter because they don't know about them. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but...
It does, because it's accepting the people for who they are, coming
Exactly.
in off of the street, rather than imposing a coded morality and modesty of...
And embarrassing them, and they will never come back.
Right.
You know?
And, culture is learned, so you can't expect someone to walk into your church culture and, bam, they get it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to expect them to, bit by bit, step by step, go, okay, so, we have a potluck once a month, and me bringing super spicy food is not a part of this church culture. I don't know, that's a bad example, but...
It's a very pastory example. But you're good. I get what you're saying.
Okay, fine. But, for me, I love super spicy food.
Mm-hmm.
I have extremely hot sauces, but that's not a part of everyone's culture. And, understanding that not everyone will have the same level of expected modesty, and trying to understand and give freedom for, I don't know, again, this is the part where I'm going to remind everyone that I'm blundering around this section of the conversation because I'm a guy.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm saying, but I don't know how to phrase it from the perspective of what you, as a woman, and listeners as a woman, have experienced in the expectation that society and culture puts on your body
Mm-hmm.
against the expectation that is what you put on your body. And, going back to that original example I gave with my daughter and picking a swimsuit, I want her to understand that she is a beautiful woman, and I don't want to accidentally create a modesty stigma
Mm-hmm.
in her that applies her beauty is only found in covering up. And I don't know how to balance that. I don't know how to balance being protective of her, but also allowing her to grow and experience. And, I lean on Melinda to help me understand that. Even in things, my pastor is a female pastor, and between Melinda and her, I think in the past 7 years, I've gotten better at understanding some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still an idiot. I still will occasionally say something stupid, and then, no, I said something stupid. They wind me back in and help me understand. But I don't know. It's trying not to screw my kid up.
I know.
It's trying not to screw my youth group up with expectations. And there's only one event. It's an inherited event that still has a dress code.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, as things change, that dress code's going to not change, but I'm not going to be as enforcing of it as others have been in the past, because we're going to be relaxed.
Yeah.
I trust my kids, my teens. I trust the families that I have in the ministry.
Yeah.
They're not going to let their kids run around in things that are wholly inappropriate. I'll give an example.
Mm-hmm.
You went to high school, like a public school?
Mm-hmm.
You were done with homeschooling at that point?
Yep.
Did your high school ever do a pajama day?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
It was my senior year, brand new high school. We had moved across state, and the idea of pajama day was entirely new to me. So it was a pretty cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we did, Spirit Week, and pajama day was in that. And that was the first and last pajama day, not because I was a senior, but because the school did away with it immediately after that day. because there was one young lady who wore like a Victoria's Secrets, no secrets, nightie.
Oh no.
It was bad. It
Wow.
was funny bad. It was, that's not even appropriate.
Yeah.
Every teacher who sees you now needs to be registered kind of bad.
Yeah.
So I trust my kids and families that I'm not going to have an issue like that of your kid's basically naked. So there is a level of trust with that. But I don't know how to express some of that in understanding what is modesty culture and what modesty culture then goes on to put only on women.
Yes.
It's very patriarchal, and I don't fully know how to kind of step that back, not awkwardly.
I think the men need to take responsibility for the way they react.
Which is very true.
Because I have felt guilty and gross because the boyfriend I was seeing was like physically reacting to me, and it was really weird to me. And I felt guilty. And I think in other instances of, I'm trying to think of how to say the example without throwing anyone under the bus. The side hug thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you give side hugs. That's anybody. Fine. Go ahead. Give a side hug. But being told you need to give side hugs because you have boobs. That's embarrassing. And it made me embarrassed about my body. Or,
See, now I'm going to jump in on this, okay? Because now we're fighting. I'm that guy who's like, okay, side hugs. Because I'm just not comfortable with anyone really hugging me.
That's cool. Yeah.
And, if I hug someone, you are, to me, that communicates. And this is kind of where, to me, hugging someone full-on frontal is, there's a level of comfort I have with you. Guy or girl, doesn't matter. Because I'm not a hugger. So, to me, side hugs. Guy or girl, don't care. Just because that physical contact, I'm guarded with.
Yep. I never hug anymore, either. Anybody. Because, unless they go for it, and then I'll give a awkward hug. But, I'm with you. And, but I think the point I was trying to make, and I kind of want to land, is the focus is you, woman, are making men lust and sin. And making them have weird things happen to them. So your shirt's too low. Your skirt is too high. You blah blah blah. You're making them feel this way. Where I think the focus needs to be on the men. And maybe it's shared. Maybe it's shared, and it is, I guess. But it's just, man, if a man could take responsibility for his body and his heart and his eyes, that'd be so cool.
No, and you're right. It's a shared thing that we don't talk about how it's shared. We just talk about how you need to be responsible to not make them feel this way. It's okay. They're guys. We're guys. I'm a guy. I have to be responsible for how I view and interact with this world, including how I view and interact with women. Mm-hmm. Because for it to be that I am so sensitive that all of the women cannot be dressed in this way is for me to entirely negate my positioning in that, to negate my responsibility in that, and put it on someone else. And that's not right. I'm responsible for how I view women, how I view this world. That's, and that's what I want to teach my son. He's responsible for how he views, interacts with. And we've tried to teach him that, you are interacting with the world as you. And it is entirely dependent on you with what happens with your inputs, what you do with that. Because inflicting morality, inflicting modesty on people doesn't solve the issue. It just passes the blame, I think is the word I want to use.
Yes. You are responsible. You need to make the decision.
Yeah. And that's not okay. But, yeah. Do you feel like we solved anything, Lindsay?
Yeah. It was interesting. It was an interesting sketch. I think we sketched out a thing and to sort of see what we're looking at, and it was interesting.
it is unique to the individuals on what their experiences are and how they then interact with the world out of those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Purity culture is collectively an experience that millennials, maybe some old Gen Zers and Gen Xers have experienced, but there's an element of toxicity in it that we're still reconciling with today. I guess that's my end conclusion.
Yep, and we kind of don't know what we're doing. We kind of have no idea and can only go off of a little bit of what the Bible says, what our experiences have told us, what we don't want to do, and try our best not to screw up our kids, and to give them a sense of dignity and respect.
Yes, and their first interactions, understandings come from us. So if we do so awkwardly, so do they.
One aspect of this that we didn't really touch on is your relationship with Melinda and how you treat her and how she treats you is the number one illustration of how your daughter should expect someone to treat her and how she should treat someone else with respect. So that's something I keep in mind with Colby all the time is how do they see us acting with each other, and how do we resolve conflicts, and how does he treat me in passing, and does he show me affection, and things like that. That's their image of what a relationship is. So don't screw that up.
Yeah. All right. So this has been a good conversation. I gotta get cleaning the house today and running the washing machines behind me. So, yeah.
All right.
One last reminder, because October is right around the corner. Our next book club episode, we're talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and that is coming up quickly in October. So keep that in mind if you want to join along in that conversation. We're going to be reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and talking about it. Mm-hmm. All right?
All right.
All right. Lindsay, it was a good
talk to you later.
Good conversation. Yep. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the 42 podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, and if you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter to add your voice to the conversation. Thank you.